Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Partaya Pradibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniam Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravinda Yatapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharadadaila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijatayam Totra Vetre Kapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gitam Ritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Parto Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitam Ritam Mataha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Thank you for joining us again. In the last class, Krishna stressed the importance of bhakti, which he called Sharanagati, which is surrendering to the Lord, who is in our heart. The gist of what he said is, Arjuna, surrender to that indwelling Lord and continue your sadhana. Without obstacles, you will certainly attain me. With this, Krishna concluded the entire Gita teaching. Krishna also gave Arjuna complete freedom to embrace the teaching or not. A genuine teacher doesn't want to be a student dependent on themselves. They want to make the students independent to make their own decisions. That is the job of a teacher, enlightening the student, so they become as independent as the teacher. That's why Krishna said to Arjuna last time, ponder over this teaching fully, then act as you like. Now let us go into the first verse, is verse 64. Now together, slowly. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyaha srinu me paramam vachaha ishtosi me dridham iti tato vakshami te hitam. I only changed a little bit, so I'll just read it out. Hear again my supreme word, most esoteric of all, because you are extremely dear to me and steadfast of heart. Therefore, I will speak what is good for you. And I only have one thing from the Shankaracharya commentary. Therefore, I will speak what is good for you means the supreme good, the means of attaining knowledge, self-knowledge. That indeed is the most beneficial of all that is good. Now for the Jnaneshwar commentary. Is there anything in this world that one cannot secure when fortune smiles upon them? This is the esoteric knowledge in which one eliminates dualism and enjoys the bliss of unity in his own home. O dearest, that object of our affection is nothing else but the self. When we cleanse the mirror, it is not for the sake of the mirror, but for our sake, since we wish to see ourselves in it. There is no duality between us, so I will tell you the secret of my heart. I am crazy about my single-minded devotees. Salt being enamored of water, it surrenders itself completely to it and feels no shame in merging with it. In the same way, you don't hold back anything from me, so why should I hide anything from you? Now listen to my great secret, before which all other secrets reveal themselves. It's getting excited. Now, Swami Chidbhavananda's commentary. It is not possible for all to dive deep into the sea. Only a few experts can do it. Among the principles governing human life, the ordinary ones can be grasped by almost all, but the profound principles elude the understanding of the majority. A good deal of mental preparation is required to comprehend profound truths. Being dazed with the knotty problems of life at the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna appealed to the Lord for Shreyas, which is the highest good, to be taught to him. The compassionate Lord guides his constant companion and new devout disciple into the core of Shreyas. Then we have this two words, Paramam Vachaha, which is what we just chanted that. It means the supreme word. That is the apt term in this respect. Mahavakya, a great declaration, is another rare term, equivalent to Paramam Vachaha. The Mahavakyas in the Upanishads are the exalted words of the rishis. Krishna's supreme word is equal to the Mahavakyas in the Upanishads. The Lord himself makes this conclusive statement. And don't forget, this goes for Amma's words as well. I want to share one experience or one story. A long time ago, when Amma started to teach the girls to do puja and homa, it was kind of surprising to the orthodoxy, especially in Kerala, which is a conservative area. And one day when she was doing a program, I think it was at Trivandrum, the media came, and one of the questions was, then a reporter asked her when she was doing a program, what is the authority for this, allowing women to do pujas and homas? Because we don't see anything like that in any of the texts. So who said it's okay? I mean, which rishi said it was okay? And Amma said, this rishi says it is okay. So we understand that Amma's words are also Mahavakyas. In the previous verse, we find Krishna as an ideal teacher, giving complete freedom to Arjuna, asking him to choose. But at the same time, Krishna has compassion for Arjuna, and therefore he has a concern. What if Arjuna makes a wrong decision? Therefore, Krishna tries to guide Arjuna a little bit more. You know, sometimes parents do something similar like this for their kids. They feel the children are grown up and should be capable of making decisions, and that the parents should slowly withdraw and make them learn to make their own decisions. But in the corner of their mind, they might think, you know, what happens if my child misuses the freedom I gave him? At the same time, they don't want their kids to be dependent on their parents when they're 50 years old. So as a teacher, Krishna said, pondering over it fully, act as you like. But as the universal Father, the compassionate Lord, he feels like advising Arjuna one more time. Then he says, my supreme word, most esoteric of all, I speak what is good for you, which means listen up. Thus, Krishna is also a well-wisher, a concerned guru without any ulterior motive. He is just telling Arjuna and us what is the best for us. Now I have to tell you a story, because it was a long time ago. I joined the ashram in 1993, and the next year I decided to go to Japan to translate for Amma. But after that, the American tour was coming, so just mechanically I got a ticket for that and decided to go the whole way. So Japan was fine. We got to America. The very first program was a retreat in Seattle area. And on the very first day, I went for the program. It was a retreat, you know, and it was beautiful. But for some reason, my mind just, reacted. And I felt, I shouldn't have come here. I don't want to be in America. I want to be in India. That's what I went for. That's what I came for. So, or actually I said to Amma, I think I made a mistake in coming on the tour. Can I go back to Puri? And Amma looked at me and she said, do what you want. And I turned to one of the Swamis and I said, what does that mean? And he says, it means do what you want, because you're not asking questions, you're telling. And then I said, okay, what do you think I should do, Amma? And then she looks at me and she says, if you came here already, why would you want to go back? Why did you come in the first place? She didn't tell me what to do. She's asked another question to me. And then when I pondered on that question, I understood that I was confused and I should stay until the end and get some benefit out of it. Then what is the secret teaching Krishna talks about? It is condensed in the next two verses, 65 and 66. In fact, these two verses summarize the entire Gita teaching. Now let us chant verse 65. Now together. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mameva ishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. I didn't change anything. Give your mind to me, be devoted to me, worship me, bow down to me. Thus you shall reach me. Truly do I promise to you, for you are very dear to me. Isn't that a beautiful verse? Just imagine if Amma said that to you. I have some things that I want to take from the Shankaracharya commentary. So when Krishna says, give your mind to me, he says, fix your thought on me. And worship me means always willing to worship me. That's tough, because we have our moods, right? So with that mood, can we possibly worship Amma? Difficult. Bow down to me means pay your respectful homage to me alone. He even gives an example. Offering all your aims, means, and ends to Vasudeva only. But he puts, for example, so it doesn't have to be Krishna necessarily, it could be any devata. And truly do I promise unto you means I make a solemn promise on this matter. Thus the meaning of this sentence is knowing the Lord to be true to his promise and being convinced that devotion to the Lord certainly brings moksha. One should devote oneself exclusively to the Lord as their refuge. Can be any deity, don't worry. Now, Jnaneshwar's commentary, and he's talking as Krishna, so just keep that in mind. Please make me the all-pervading God, the object of all your activities, both physical and mental. Just as the wind remains clinging closely to the sky, remain centered in me while doing your work. No, make your mind my exclusive dwelling place and fill your ears with my praise. Saints purified by knowledge of the self are just my own miniature forms. It'd be nice to become a miniature form of Amma, wouldn't it be? Let your vision look fondly at them as a loving husband looks at his wife. I am the dwelling place of all things, so make your speech fond of uttering my name. Whatever you do or wherever you go, perform all actions for my sake. You should assume the attitude of a servant and, seeing me in all beings, serve them. Then you will get rid of hatred towards all beings and bow to them with the knowledge that I am in all of them. In this way, you will secure full refuge. Let there be no third party in this crowded world. We shall have complete privacy. Then we shall be able to enjoy each other's company, which will enhance our happiness. When the barrier of a third party is removed, you will come to me and become one with me. This concept resembles one in the Gnostic teachings, which they call the bridal chamber. Like Jnaneshwar calls it, having complete privacy with God, Jesus says, many are standing at the door, but it is the introvert, the antarmukhi, who will enter the bridal chamber. That comes from the Gospel of Thomas. When the water, I'm going back to the commentary, when the water dries up, is there any obstacle for the sun to merge its reflection back into itself? Who is going to prevent the wind from merging with the sky or the waves from getting dissolved into the sea? Whatever distinction is seen between you and me is due to the properties of our bodies. When the body consciousness disappears, you will become one with me. Do not entertain any doubt about what I say. I swear to you, I am saying only the truth. He has to beg his disciple to trust him. O Partha, one should propitiate me by dedicating all actions to me. Then they will attain to my knowledge through my grace and become merged in my divine form. Swami Chidbhavananda's commentary. The Lord declares the bare truth about himself and his relationship with the Jivatman. The sole object of his being embodied is to tell this truth to the world. The Jivatman and the Paramatman are ever linked. It is the greatest unifying force. Progress culminates in perfect union. Love leads the Jivatman to the pinnacle of eternal union with the Paramatman. We can also say that worldly love makes us identify with the Jivatman, while we project the Paramatman on the objects of our desire. So it's the opposite of what Jnaneshwar is saying, but this is the reality of our lives. So we have to exchange them. On a journey, the vehicle is the means and the destination is the end. But in our journey towards the Paramatman, the means and the end are the same. It is by God's grace that we reach God, but only if we make our own endeavors. A base mind drags us away from the divine. After many births, discernment dawns. When right understanding develops, the mind allows itself to be directed towards God. It is then weaned from the world and dedicated to the Lord. The mind that was a den of negative tendencies is converted into God's sanctuary. This is a soul-redeeming turning point in our life. We heard such stories in the talks that are given every day. So many people say that their life changed when they met Amma. As devotion to the Lord increases, the devotee imbibes the divine coming back to the commentary. As devotion to the Lord increases, the devotee imbibes the divine qualities of the Lord. In her extreme love for Krishna, each gopi thought that she herself was Sri Krishna. And this is the goal to which pure devotion leads the devotee. While in the process of becoming established in it, a divine madness overtakes the devotee. The Lord, in turn, becomes mad for his devotee. Bowing down is a mark of subordinating one's individuality to the greatness of another. The devotee delights in bowing before the Lord, because in doing so he states the truth about God. The more the prostration before God, the greater the bliss enjoyed by the devotee. Now a few more thoughts to share. How is the essence of the Gita expressed in this verse? The essence of the Gita is about how to attain moksha, but the how-to part depends on what stage each person is in. First, a person needs to develop some kind of interest in spirituality, which may take millions of births. We can call such a person a beginner because they have finally commenced their spiritual life. For them, karma yoga should be good enough for decades or even more. One who has some past birth experience in karma yoga may not need that much time. But either way, the karma yoga stage is inescapable. For example, selfless service. That can just be social service. It can be guru seva, japa, puja, which is physical or mental, and there's meditation with form, etc. A very mature karma yogi will have all the virtues that Krishna talked about in the last few chapters. And I have a reference document with all the virtues we need to cultivate, or that Krishna says we need to cultivate, into one document, and you can download that if you look at the description area of the video. That also signals that their mind and intellect are finally capable of understanding the subtler teachings of Advaita Vedanta. Examples would be learning Vedanta through the Guru's words, directly or indirectly, contemplation on that learning, assimilatory meditation to make the teachings our very own. Both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are compulsory and in that order. Every verse in the Gita supports one of the two. The first line in the verse is, "Give your mind to me, be devoted to me, worship me, bow down to me," which sounds just like Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. It's very reminiscent of chapter 9, verse 34, where Krishna says, "Fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, make offerings to me, bow down to me." So giving one's mind to God completely means that God is one's goal in life. Giving one's mind to God completely means that God is one's goal in life. Whatever is important for us, that is what our mind will go to. In a way, we are all devotees of something. A money devotee, a partner or spouse devotee, a new house devotee, a baby devotee, etc. We replace God with all these things. Instead, we should give our mind to Amma because she will take care of everything. That means we don't fix our mind on anything else, which is the most difficult thing to do. To attain this level, we need to understand the superiority of this goal compared to all other goals. Amma is permanent bliss, while all other desires are only temporary. In the meantime, we worship God through all our actions. That's what is meant by puja manobhava in your swadharmam, which means do your dharma while maintaining this attitude. I am doing this as a puja to Amma. When Krishna says, "Bow down to me," it also includes the importance of God's grace. When we remember that, our arrogance turns into humility, and our mind understands the importance of surrender. If we follow these instructions, Krishna says, "I promise you shall reach me." With this, the first stage is over. Now comes the second stage. But first, Shankaracharya has something to say. Having concluded the teaching that the supreme secret of Karma Yoga is taking refuge in God, now he feels that he should state the fruit of Karma Yoga as determined in all Upanishads, and that is right knowledge. Thus, the Lord says. Now let us chant verse 66. Now together. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. I only changed one word. Relinquishing all your dharmas, take refuge in me alone. I will absolve you of all errors. Worry not. I don't like that word sin because it brings up bad feelings for Westerners. But actually, the word papa that's coming here is closer to error than sin. So I'm going to use that in this whole verse. Now let us hear Shankaracharya's commentary. He says that when Krishna said, relinquishing all your dharmas, Shankaracharya believes that the word dharma includes adharma. We have to understand that, since absolute freedom from all action is intended to be taught here, as explained in the Veda and later texts. So, the meaning is renouncing all actions, dharma and adharma, and then take refuge in me alone, the self of all, dwelling equally in all beings, the Lord, the everlasting, changeless, and the One, with the belief that I am truly that. The import is, understand that there is nothing else besides me. So far, we have understood this is a very, very deep verse about Vedanta. Shankaracharya's commentary proclaims that we are one with God, the actionless, not our active body, mind, and intellect. And when Krishna says, I will liberate you, he says it means when you have a settled understanding. So there's no liberation without a settled understanding. And when Krishna said from all errors, Shankaracharya says it means all sorts of bondage due to dharma and adharma by manifesting myself as your own self. In other words, you think that you are God, but you aren't, basically. It has already been said in chapter 10, verse 2, neither the gods nor the great sages know the secret of my birth, because I am the source of the gods and great sages. Therefore, grieve not. Do not give yourself over to sorrow. Now follows the concluding and conclusive discussion to determine exactly which is the path advocated by the Gita. And this is now the commentary still. There are passages in the Gita such as, knowing which one attains the immortal, that's chapter 13, verse 12. And then having known me in reality, he forthwith enters into me. This chapter, verse 55. These demonstrate that the attainment of the highest bliss is through pure knowledge without anything else. Passages like, your right is to work only, perform action as did the ancients in the olden days, teach that the performance of action is quite necessary. Since both knowledge and work are thus taught to be obligatory duties, there may also arise the doubt that both of them jointly might be the means to the highest bliss. That means liberation. Now, after this, Shankaracharya has yet another 17 pages of commentary. On average, even a single page for a verse is rather long for him. So we can understand that this verse 66 is very, very important to him. But instead of getting into the minutiae of the verse's meaning, with the time limit we have, I prefer to look at the general meaning of the verse and why it is so important to Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya asks a question to an opponent, which is, in the Gita, what is the means to the highest bliss? Knowledge, action, or both together? Now, of course, this reveals that there was a debate about the answer to this question at that time. So let's see the philosophical background that made this question important to Shankaracharya. During the time when Shankaracharya wrote his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, the philosophical landscape of India was characterized by diverse and often conflicting philosophical schools. Some of the prominent schools of thought during his time included Nyaya and Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Patanjali's Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Buddhism, Jainism, and others. And if you are interested in learning more, I have another reference document which you can download from the description area. In this context, Shankaracharya's commentary on the Gita was aimed at establishing Advaita Vedanta. So the debates were real-life questions for contemporary philosophers, and the opponents in the commentary could have been depicted to resemble actual contemporary leaders of a particular sect. In sum, Shankaracharya's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita was part of his larger effort to prove logically that Advaita Vedanta best explains the highest goal in life for all beings and how to attain that goal. Now, coming back to the question in Shankaracharya's commentary, in the Gita, what is the means to ultimate bliss? Knowledge, action, or both together? Well, what is the means to ultimate bliss? After getting this far in the Gita, do we know the answer? Not surprisingly, Shankaracharya proves that only knowledge can lead to ultimate bliss. And by the way, if you happen to disagree with him, there are another 7,700 words about the matter, if you can even follow his impeccable logic. I get confused sometimes when I read his commentary, so don't feel bad. Then he quotes the Shruti, or the Vedas, as follows. The Shruti declares that there is no path to moksha other than knowledge. Knowing him alone, one crosses beyond death. There is no other path to final emancipation. That's from the Upanishads, which is the Shruti. The Shruti further declares that it is as impossible for an ignorant person to attain moksha as it is impossible to roll up the sky, also from the same Upanishad. The Puranas also declare that one attains to moksha only by knowledge. Shankaracharya also bolsters his argument by including the necessity for performing one's swadharma along the lines of the Gita's teaching. After all of his logical arguments, he concludes as such. It is thus settled that knowledge alone can bring about the complete destruction of actions, dharma and adharma, caused by avidya, and not the performance of daily rituals. Because all actions originate from avidya and kama, ignorance and desire. It has been so established that the path of action, karma yoga, pertains to the unenlightened, and that devotion to knowledge, jnana nishta, pertains to the wise, accompanied with renunciation of all actions. Now there's a long list of verses that he shares in his commentary, which we don't have enough time to cover here. So I have one more reference doc that you can find in the description area. Just a few more words about Shankaracharya's commentary. The argument about whether all actions come from ignorance or not continues and makes roughly half of the 7,700 words. And take a wild guess who wins the debate. Of course, it is Shankaracharya. Then Shankaracharya concludes his words by saying, therefore it is established that the illusion of samsara is simply the effect of a false conception, in that it is not absolutely real, and consequently its total extinction is brought about only by right knowledge or complete knowledge. Now let's hear the commentary of Jnaneshwar. He's again speaking as Krishna. From hope springs misery, from slander, sin, and from misfortune, poverty. In the same way, anadharmic acts lead to heaven and hell, due to ignorance. Unroot this ignorance with the help of knowledge. If you take the rope in your hand, the delusion that it is a snake disappears. After rising from sleep, the mundane affairs in the dream vanish. In the same way, you should abandon ignorance, which gives rise to the craze of dharmic and adharmic acts, and then relinquish even meritorious acts. But you do them, it means, he gives an example, they do those acts but without desiring the fruit. That's the key point. When ignorance ceases, I alone remain. Just as when the dream disappears along with the sleep, one remains alone. so too there remains none but myself. Then you become one with me, with the knowledge that you are myself. To become one with me, with the loss of one's separate personality, is what is known as surrender to me. When an earthen pot is destroyed, the space within it merges into the total space. Similarly, when you surrender yourself to me, you will become united with me, just as a gold bead merges into gold, or a wave dissolves in water. You surrender yourself to me and attain perfect unity with me. When a seeker identifies himself with me and renders service to me, it constitutes devotion to me. Though butter comes from buttermilk, after that it will no longer mix with it. Similarly, when you surrender to me with the knowledge of unity with me, then you will not be affected by dharma or adharmic acts. When fire is kindled by rubbing sticks against each other, that fire no longer remains confined in the sticks. O Arjuna, the sun cannot see darkness, nor can one be deluded by their dream after waking. In the same way, when one becomes completely identified with me, is there any scope for their remaining distinct from my universal form? You should not feel anxious about it, or about merit and error. To remain separate from me is the sign of bondage. That error will be destroyed by my knowledge. So when you surrender to me with exclusive devotion, you will become one with me. As salt fallen into water becomes water, you will thus be released from all bondage. When you attain knowledge of me, I shall liberate you. So you realize me through knowledge and surrender to me. Next, Jnaneshwar explains how Krishna gives Arjuna the experience of samadhi. Then Lord Krishna extended his right arm and embraced Arjuna, who had surrendered himself to Krishna. The embrace was only a pretext for imparting his own essence to Arjuna, which is not within the reach of words or intellect, and from which words are forced to beat a retreat. By mingling his heart with the heart of Arjuna, the Lord transferred the secret within his heart into the heart of Arjuna and became united with him without the loss of duality. Like a lamp lighting another lamp, Lord Krishna made Arjuna one with him. By this embrace, without breaking up dualism, then there swept such a great flood of happiness that even the all-pervading God got drowned in it. When a sea meets another sea, doubling its water, it rises high into the sky to accommodate itself. So when the two met, they could not control themselves. Who could know and tell how it happened? The whole universe was flooded with Narayana. Now, Swami Chidbhavananda's commentary. An embodied being is also an embodiment of karma, action. That karma proves helpful to the Jivatman in his journey to God. On the realization of God, that helpful action itself has to be renounced, its purpose being fully served. Surrendering oneself to the Lord is the culmination of all the endeavors of the Jivatman. The import of self-surrender must be correctly understood. It is like a rivulet joining a stream having its confluence with a river, and a river merging in this ocean. Surrendering oneself to the Lord is the culmination of all the endeavors of the Jivatman. The import of self-surrender must be correctly understood. It is like a rivulet joining a stream have its confluence with a river, and a river merging in the ocean. Self-surrender is truly self-fulfillment. From the beginning to the end, the devotee feels non-separate from God. Rather, they lose their individuality in the absorbing love of God. Intense thought of God is the devotee's self-surrender. One who identifies themselves with pure consciousness renounces all limiting attributes. What persists in them is the great awareness, which knows no distinctions, such as eternal and external. The attainment of this supreme state is the act of taking refuge in God. A thing is said to be pure while it is in its original state. The same thing is said to have become impure when it comes into contact with and affected by another thing. The impure state of Jivatman is due to error. It has assumed on itself what is not its own. When the Jivatman identifies itself with the Paramatman, it is purged of all error. It is freed from individualized consciousness and fixed in cosmic consciousness, which is without beginning and end. Remember, this is the last verse of Krishna's spiritual message in the Bhagavad Gita, which makes it a very important verse. It is often quoted because of that, and we chant it at the end of the food prayer on Tuesday here in Puri. The verses that come afterwards represent the closing of the Gita. So this one is called Charama Shloka, or final verse. The teaching begins only from chapter 2, verse 11. Thus, the verses prior to that are considered to be opening verses. Similarly, after the verse we just did, 66, the verses that come after that are considered to be concluding verses. This verse is easily misunderstood, even deliberately misinterpreted. Krishna says, "Give up all dharmas and surrender to me, and me alone. Then I will free you from all errors, so no need to worry." Having read this, one might wonder, after all the Vedantic teachings in the Gita, would Krishna's last teaching be to just surrender to him? Nothing about Advaita? Naturally, Shankaracharya knows that Krishna won't leave Arjuna and us with a teaching that is of little relevance and consolation. So in his commentary, Shankaracharya goes to great lengths, literally, in proving that the essence of this verse is knowledge and nothing else. To maintain the continuity in the teaching, the very first teaching and the very last teaching should be consistent. The very first teaching in the Gita is chapter 2, verse 11, when Krishna says, "You grieve for those for whom there should be no grief. Yet you speak like a wise person. Wise people grieve neither for the dead nor for the living." What about this verse, 66? Krishna says, "Relinquishing all your dharmas, take refuge in me alone. I will absolve you of all error. Worry not." What is the connection? The connection is the statement, "Don't worry." At the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna was grieving, and at the end of the Gita, he still has worries. So the most important factor remains the same. Arjuna needs wisdom, which here means self-knowledge. Another way in which this verse is a teaching about knowledge is the usage of the word dharma. Here, it doesn't mean dharma in the usual sense. It refers to all sadhanas, karma, upasana, japa, meditation, by body, speech, and thought. The point is that they purify the mind. And one practices these dharmas, the point is that they purify the mind. And when one practices these dharmas, they gradually acquire spiritual maturity. And from our experience with Amma, we understand that there is no higher sadhana, no higher dharma than following the Guru's instructions and actions. An example is the story I told in the last class. If you remember, there's a Swami that loves to do japa and archana. And one day we were in Milano, it was many years ago, and he was doing his archana as usual, and suddenly somebody called him and said, "Amma's calling you." And later on, he told me the first thought he had was, "Darn, I'm not going to finish my archana." And then the second thought was, "Oh my gosh, Amma's calling me, it's Devi herself." And then that confusion was over. This story is a perfect example of having to relinquish all other dharmas the usual dharmas. Relinquishing dharmas means relinquishing for a higher level of tyaga, renunciation. And since we are following the Guru's directions, there's no question of incurring bad karma. So Krishna reminds him, I will absolve you of all errors. For Shankaracharya, after all the usual sadhana is over, the person has become a jnani, a knower of the self. But giving some solace for the rest of us, he adds, those who render service to the Lord, though even steadfast, are followers of the path of action and not jnanis. Okay, we know that, we're not realized. And they resort to one of the means mentioned in descending order, the last of which is the abandonment of the fruit of action. He's talking about this part of chapter 12, verses 8 to 11, and we can use that to remind ourselves. You can go back and do that as your homework. So if you read these verses, you'll get a lot of options for your sadhana. But according to Shankaracharya, the real deal is those who contemplate on the indefinable and the imperishable possess the aids mentioned beginning from chapter 12, verses 13 to 20. And they are also possessed of the means to knowledge stated in the 3 chapters, which is 10 verses 7 to 11, chapter 14, verses 22 to 26, and chapter 15, verses 3 to 5. Now we have introductions to the next verse from both Shankaracharya and Jnaneshwar. Shankaracharya says, having concluded the whole substance of the Gita Shastra in this chapter, and with a view to confirm the teaching of the Shastra briefly and conclusively, at the end, the Lord now proceeds to lay down the code for handing down the teaching. Now, Jnaneshwar has his own way of expressing it, but it's the same message really. O Arjuna, even if you have a good cow, you will get milk only if you know how to milk her. So even if a seeker secures a worthy guru and attains knowledge through his grace, that knowledge will be fruitful only if the seeker observes the tradition of that knowledge. So, now I will tell you the proper tradition of this Gita scripture. Hear it with due respect. Now together, slowly. Idante na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrusave vacham na cha mam yobhyasuyati na cha mam yobhyasuyati. This verse I changed quite a lot, so I'll have to read it out slowly for you. You should never speak this to one who is devoid of austerities or devotion, nor to one who does not render service, nor to one who does not wish to hear it, nor to one who speaks ill of me. Shankaracharya's commentary. This Gita Shastra, which has been taught to you for the destruction of samsara, is never, under any circumstances whatsoever, nor to one who practices austerities but lacks devotion to the Guru and God. Nor should it be told to one who does not render service, though devoted and practicing austerities, nor to one who carps at me, which means raising trivial objections, who takes me, Vasudeva, to be an ordinary mortal and erroneously attributes faults to me, nor to one who carps at me, which means raising trivial objections, who takes me, Vasudeva, to be an ordinary mortal and erroneously attributes faults to me. So basically, this list covers almost everybody you know. But Amma's giving us permission. As long as you're sincere, it's okay. It is understood that the Shastra is to be taught to one who is devoted to God, a person of austerities, one who renders service and wishes to hear and learn, and one who does not carp at the Lord. Now, Jnaneshwar's commentary. Even if he is an ascetic, but is lacking in devotion to his guru, you should shun him. Leftover prasad should not be given to a crow, even if he is old. So too, the teaching of the Gita should not be imparted to one who is austere, but not devoted to a guru. And even if a person is perfect in these two respects, but is not interested in hearing it, he will not be eligible to hear it. Even if pearls are precious, will you be able to thread them if they don't have holes in them? Why not offer sweet dishes to a hungry person rather than waste it on a person whose belly is already full? Take care not to impart, even out of curiosity, this teaching of the Gita to a person who has no liking for it, though they may look worthy. The eye can appreciate beauty, yet what is the use of placing perfume before it? A thing becomes fruitful only when it is received with a liking. Even if a person possesses austerity, devotion, and an interest in hearing the Gita, but talks badly of me and my devotees, he is not fit to hear this teaching. Even if he is endowed with other qualities, it is like a lampstand without a flame. Just as a beautiful maiden is decked with ornaments, but has no life in her, or a beautiful mansion is guarded by a cobra at its entrance, or delicious dishes are mixed with poison, or there is deception under the cover of friendship, so the austerity, devotion, and understanding of a person who reviles me and my devotees is full of conceit. Therefore, even if the abuser were as great as Brahmaji, the creator, do not impart this teaching to him, even out of fun. Now the commentary of Swami Chidbhavananda. The Bhagavad Gita is a compendium of all the principles governing our ethical and spiritual life. The Lord's supreme motive is to make these teachings available to all seekers. Our life will rise to the extent these principles are imbibed and put into practice. Still, there are flippant people who try to make this sacred science a cheap affair, serving no useful purpose whatsoever. The teachings of the Gita do no good to those who are devoid of austerity and a disciplined life. Again, a thoroughly disciplined life is not an end in itself any more than merely owning a perfectly made musical instrument. As music should flow from the instrument, a perfect human life should be directed to cultivating devotion to God. It is bhakti that sanctifies our life and renders austerity purposeful. The nature of bhakti is to give unconditionally and never grab. A devotee expresses their love in the form of service. Amma says, "Children, however much rainwater falls on the mountaintop, it will not remain there. It will flow down to the river below. The low-lying ditch receives the water from all sides. This is the greatness of humility. This is what is needed. Everything will come running where there is humility." So the following verses talk about the rules of Gita study, as well as the benefits. From this verse, we get 4 conditions for studying the Gita. From this verse, we get 4 conditions for studying the Gita. The first condition is tapas, or austerity. A seeker must be disciplined. By discipline, it means not only the material discipline, we also expect a spiritual discipline. Treat the Gita book itself with reverence. Don't write in it or drop it on a table. Don't read while lying down or in the washroom. The second condition is bhakti. The Gita is not a book written by another human being. It was spoken by God Krishna. And of course, the content is the highest truth in the world. Therefore, we should have respect and devotion. The third condition is a sincere desire to learn. Don't try to force it on someone. There's a word, vanarodanam, which means shouting in the forest. So if you're giving your advice to others and they don't ask for it, that's what we call vanarodanam. It's useless. We ourselves should sincerely desire to learn and improve, not a desire to look wise. It is a text that teaches us how to improve our life. The fourth condition is the absence of carping or making trivial objections, and so on. If you are not convinced in the teaching, don't find fault in the teaching or the teacher, but with your own understanding. This is called Shraddha, faith. Krishna says that only a person with these 4 qualifications can be taught. And those qualifications, once again, discipline, devotion, a desire to learn, and faith. Krishna is basically talking about sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi. In English, we can call it the wealth of the 4 means. The 4 means, it's kind of a trick because one of those 4 is a list of 6 things. So the first one is viveka, or discernment. Second one is vairagya, dispassion. The third one is samadhi shatka, which means the 6 qualities that start from shama. Shama means control of mind. The second one is dhamma, which is control of senses. Uparati is withdrawal. Titiksha, forbearance. Shraddha, faith. Samadhana, profound absorption or contemplation. These 6 comprise the third one of 4. And the fourth one is mumukshutvam, a burning desire for moksha. Wow, so many restrictions, qualifications, do's and don'ts. Is it really worth all the hassle? We'll find out in the next class. Now we will have a short meditation. Now let us have a brief meditation. First, check your posture. Close your eyes. And take a few long, deep breaths. With each long, deep breath, feel your body and mind relax further and further. Feel Amma's subtle Feel Amma's subtle presence all around you and within you. Feel her embrace, the warmth of her body, and the love in her heart. Now focus your awareness on your breathing. Now focus your awareness on your breathing breathing process. Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. Now shift your awareness to your body. Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. Just witness the flow of the inhalation and exhalation. It is as though you are sitting on the bank of a peaceful stream, watching the water flow in front of you. When you focus on your breath, the mind becomes more and more subtle. And with that subtlety, we can visualize more. We can visualize Amma's fort. We can visualize Amma's form before us. Pray to Amma for her help and guidance, so that we may be able to put all of these teachings into practice. Let us now pray to Amma for her guidance and blessings. Oh my beloved Amma, you know how many vasanas and problems that we have. In order to put these teachings into practice, we will need your grace every second of the day. Please hold my hand and guide me. Don't let me fall down. Be my guide each and every second of the day. That is my only wish. Now let us conclude with the final prayers. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. One more long deep breath. And as you exhale, you can slowly open your eyes. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next class. Om Amriteshwari Namaha.